The LA Kings do not learn from their mistakes, and they suffer another disappointing defeat. We'll get into that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube and Amazon Fire TV. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly podcast and YouTube show wrapping up the night in the NHL, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Well, the LA Kings played Game 4 of the Stanley Cup playoffs in Edmonton against the Oilers, coming off a tough 7-4 loss in which the Kings let the game slip away in the third period. Controversial calls, controversial coaches challenge, and poor strategy let a 4-3 lead slip away. So the Kings had to move on, turn the page, reset, and play a big Game 4, and it happened again. The LA Kings had a lead going into the third period for a second straight game, and they lost 4-3 in overtime. This loss was worse than the Game 3 loss to me, because this time the Kings had a 2-goal lead going into the final period instead of a 1-goal lead. This time the Kings were 29 seconds away from a win and a 3-1 lead in the series, and they allowed the Oilers to tie it. And worst of all, this time the Kings did not learn from their mistakes in Game 3. And that's my biggest takeaway from this game. The Kings once again played more not to lose than to win. They took their foot off the gas. They stopped being aggressive. They went into a defensive shell, and they pretty much let the Oilers do whatever they wanted to do in the third period, and they lost again. It's one thing to do it once, but to do it again in the very next game? Okay, it wasn't quite as bad as Game 3 in some respects. The Kings did get a little bit more offensive zone time. They threw a few courtesy shots on net, but not that much more. Overall, it was the same. They didn't keep the Oilers honest. They didn't make the Oilers expend any energy playing defense. They didn't take some time off the clock by keeping it in the Oilers' end at all. TV analyst Jim Fox talked about it on this show. He talked about it on the TV broadcast. The Oilers need to worry about the Kings, and he's 100% right, because the Kings are the better team. There was way too much of what we saw in the third period of Game 3 in the third period again in Game 4. The Kings were sitting back on their own blue line. They let the Oilers skate completely free through the neutral zone and put the puck in the Kings' end, get a couple of shots on goal. The Kings would dump the puck out, get a line change, and then it would do it all over again for the most part. And yeah, I know the Oilers are obviously being more aggressive, trailing in the third period. That's going to play a factor in it. But the Kings still were passive. They didn't make the Oilers respect them. It was just like Game 3. It's like a glorified penalty kill. And I don't understand why the change, why the apparent strategy change. Because, again, the Kings are clearly the better team in the first two periods of this Game 4. In the first period, in the second period, they made the Oilers worry about them. They didn't do that in the third period. I believe the Kings are the better team overall. And in the first two periods of Game 4, they played like the better team. So why change anything? The Kings outshot the Oilers 14-6 in the first period. They led 1-0. They outshot the Oilers 14-9 in the second period, and they led 3-1. Why are you doing anything different? But they did. It doesn't make any sense. And I know the Kings are a good defensive team, and I know that they've got the better goalie. And yeah, I guess they were 29 seconds away from that strategy working out ultimately, but why let the other team get into that position where they can tie the game with 29 seconds left when it doesn't seem like that needed to be the case? It's like a football team that's passing the ball all over the field for 3/4, and then they decide, let's stop doing it because something bad might happen, and we'll just run the ball and we'll punt it and we'll run the clock out. And then you let the other team back in the game because you stopped doing what worked. But again, the real thing that blows my mind is that we just saw in the previous game that this is not a good strategy, that this is a really bad idea. How do you not learn from your mistakes? I mean, it's fine when you're up 2 goals in the third period to think defense first and to not necessarily take any risky plays, to try to score more goals because you've got 2 more than the other team. That's fine. But it doesn't mean you just completely stop working what's been going right the entire game. In the post-game press conference, the first question to Kings head coach Jim Hiller was asked by Dennis Bernstein of the fourth period and NHL Network Radio, and it was the question that needed to be asked. It was the question that every Kings fan wanted to know the answer to. What is going on in the third period of these games? I'm going to play the audio for you, and we'll hear what Jim Hiller had to say.
How do you change your approach in the third period to better close out games?
How do I change it? Next question, please. We're that far away on the empty net. Q chips that one out. Bouchard makes a good play. We're not even talking about this. So
that was a terrible answer from head coach Jim Hiller. I mean, that's the one question you have to ask. What's going on in the third period? The question was, how do you change your approach in the third period to better close out games? That's exactly what we want to know. And for Jim Hiller to dismiss that question almost as if it's offensive to ask him that, and then to make excuses as to, well, we almost won. I mean, I like Jim Hiller. I really think he's done a tremendous job this season, but that is a terrible answer to a question that needed to be asked. I've been in those group press conferences before, and sometimes reporters will ask a question to try and get a response. They want to get a soundbite, maybe even to agitate a coach or a player. That was not what that was. That was a question that I believe, and I, as a Kings fan, want to know the answer to. What is going on in the third where you can't close these games out? And even Jim Hiller could have just given one of those non-answers that coaches give. He could have said, yeah, you know what? We got to play better in the third or something, generic like that. But he didn't even do that. He went into the, well, we almost won excuse mode. And you know what? You didn't win. Almost doesn't matter. That question had to be asked. And I did not, as a Kings fan, I did not appreciate that answer that Jim Hiller gave. Now, he's a human being, and I got to believe he's frustrated and not happy about the result, obviously. But that was a poor response to that question. And good on Dennis Bernstein for asking that question that needed to be asked. Now, if the Kings play the same way that they did in the third period as they did in the first 2 periods, I believe they would have won the game. Now, that's an opinion. It's not a fact. I can't prove it. But even if somehow that wasn't the case, I could have accepted the Kings losing because the other team played better. I mean, that's sports. But to completely change what was successful, that's hard to swallow. When you're the better team, you're looking great, and then it's like, no, let's stay back, let's play it safe, and then it burns you again for the second straight game. It's very hard to accept, and it's pretty upsetting. Now, can the Kings still win this series? Absolutely. I've said it from the beginning. If the Kings just win their home games, which they are very capable of doing, they will win the series. And it may come down to that. But this was such a missed opportunity to get a 3-1 lead in the series. Obviously, it's not 4. You got to have 4 to advance, but that's putting a team on the ropes, and you can close it out at home the next game. I think if you look over the 12 periods of hockey that's been played so far between these two teams, I think you would say the Kings have played better hockey in more of those periods than the Oilers have. But the Oilers have been better in the third period in 3 of the 4 games, and that needs to be addressed. The Kings had a 5-3 lead in game 1. Oilers scored 3 straight goals to tie it. Thankfully, Philip Deneau saves the day, and the Kings pull out the victory. At least that game, the Oilers had their goalie pulled for a couple of their goals. Connor McDavid goes insane and nearly wins it for him. Game 3, the Kings, again, we mentioned it, 4-3 lead going into the third. You allow 4 straight goals in the final period. Yes, controversial call, bad coach's challenge, but now in game 4, up 3-1 in the third, and you can't hold the lead because you stop playing your game. So the strategy going forward, don't help the Oilers. Play your game for 3 periods, not 1, not 2, 3. And it's also not, if that doesn't end up being good enough, if somehow you play your game for 3 periods and they end up beating you, so be it. But don't lose because you stopped being aggressive and you stopped doing what you do well. That's what happened in game 2. The Kings had a 3-1 lead in the third. Edmonton scored to make it 3-2, and the Kings kept attacking, and they scored 3 straight goals, and they closed it out. That's what they need to do. Keep attacking. Don't sit back. Yes, be smart about it, but don't stop doing what you do well. All right, up next, we're going to get more into some of the individual performances on the ice, some of the lineup changes for the Kings. We'll do that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So just stop managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Looking at the lineup in game 4, the Kings stuck with the 6-12 setup, 12 forwards and 6 defensemen. Same forward setup. However, the Kings did take Jordan Spence out of the lineup on defense. They put Jacob Morar in, and then they moved Vladislav Gavrikov to the right side on the third pairing with Morar. Gavrikov played over 31 minutes, so it wasn't like your typical third pairing defenseman. He played many more minutes than Brandt Clark did, even though he was on the second pairing. Obviously, those minutes are inflated because of overtime. The Kings basically played with 9 forwards and 5 defense, and I think it's reasonable to say that probably didn't help them as the game went into overtime from a fatigue standpoint. Jim Hiller was asked afterwards if fatigue was one of the factors in the Oilers out shooting the Kings in the third period in overtime, and he responded, quote, "I don't know, could be," end quote. Well, we know the series will go at least 2 more games, and if Jim Hiller continues to play 9 forwards and 5 defensemen, it could be a problem. As for the Oilers, they did play Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl together situationally. The Oilers continue to play a lot of different combinations up front, but overall, they played more players. They've been a bit deeper than the Kings, and maybe that helped them. I think it's reasonable to say that helped them in overtime. As expected, the Oilers did start Calvin Pickard in net once again. Why not? After winning, no need to change. I thought he was okay. Again, he's playing good enough for them to win. He's not winning games for them, that's for sure. He allowed 3 goals on 31 shots in this one. As for the Kings, Darcy Kemper, I feel really bad for Darcy. I thought he played great. Huge saves in this one, multiple big saves in overtime to give the Kings a chance to win it, but unfortunately not the case. Looking at the goals that he allowed, the first goal was a shorthanded goal. Corey Perry batting the puck out of midair into the net. Now, Perry did play the puck with a high stick, or at least came very close to doing so before he scored. The call on the ice was a good goal. I don't think that replay showed conclusive evidence that he did touch the puck with a high stick. So I believe it was not worth the risk to challenge it, and Jim Hiller did not challenge it. Second goal, a shot that Drew Doughty stopped. He tried to backhand it out of the zone. He didn't get all of it. It went right to Oilers defenseman Evan Bouchard, who also partially fanned on his shot, and it goes off the foot of Drew Doughty and in. The third goal, the goal with 29 seconds left, Oilers pulled the goalie for the extra attacker. Defenseman Evan Bouchard fires a point shot from straight away. I don't know if it hits something on the way in or not, but it beat Kemper to tie up the game. And then the fourth goal, the overtime game winner, Kemper was laying on his stomach on the ice when Leon Draisaitl scored on the power play. It was a redirect on net. Kemper made the save, but the rebound went to Draisaitl at the side of the net. As for the tripping call on Vladislav Gavrikov that gave the Oilers the power play in overtime, I don't think it was a penalty. Gavrikov and Connor McDavid get their feet tangled up. They go down, and of course, McDavid's going to get that call. I wasn't shocked by the call. I'll put it that way. But and also, honestly, it should have never come to that. But if you want to be upset about that call, I can certainly understand that. As for the Kings' goals, Trevor Moore scored the Kings' first goal, a quick little wrist shot that beat Calvin Pickard 5-hole between the pads. Philip Deneau made a very nice between-the-legs pass from the corner to set up Trevor. Second goal of the playoffs for Trevor Moore, and for Philip Deneau, his fourth point of the playoffs. Warren Fogle scored the Kings' second goal. Another great play from Philip Deneau, knocks the puck off an Oilers player's stick and into the Kings zone. Fogle gets it, goes hard to the net with the puck, pushed the puck towards the net, and then made contact with the pad of Calvin Pickard. He did push Pickard's pad as he was following up his shot. It ended up being basically like a slam dunk into the goal. Pickard immediately complained about goalie interference. The call on the ice was good goal, and the Oilers decided not to challenge it. They were down 2-0 at that point. Obviously, if they challenged it and didn't get the call, the Kings would have then gone a power play, and it just wasn't worth the risk in their mind. I get where Pickard was coming from, because Fogle did make contact with his pad, but he was putting the puck in the net, or he was trying to play the puck, and he kind of got a part of the pad and the puck. It would have been very interesting to see what the ruling would have been if the Oilers had challenged it, but they didn't. As for Warren Fogle, first playoff goal as an LA King, and again, another great play from Philip Deneau, his second point of the game and fifth point this postseason. Kevin Fiala scored the Kings' third and final goal. Alex Laferriere made a nice flip ahead after Fiala knocked the puck off an Oilers defenseman's stick, and then he shot down the ice. Fiala played the pass with a high stick, or again, was very close to doing so on the breakaway, and then was able to finish off the goal. I think, again, like the Corey Perry goal, I think it would have been interesting to see what the ruling would have been. I also, though, think like the Perry goal, the call on the ice was a good goal. I think it probably would have stood if you would have challenged it. For Kevin Fiala, his third goal of the playoffs. For Alex Laferriere, that was his first point this postseason. Checking the team leaders in the loss to the Oilers, Philip Deneau was the only King with a multiple-point game, 2 points, 2 assists. No Kings defenseman had a point in the game. Warren Fogle led the Kings with 9 shots on goal. Mikey Anderson led the Kings with 7 hits. Joel Edmondson had 8 block shots. And Edmondson also led the Kings in time on ice, 36 minutes and 16 seconds. Andrei Kopitar led the Kings in the faceoff circle, winning 17 of 24 faceoffs, 70.8%. Coming up next, we look ahead to Game 5. That's next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Looking for a snack that is both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether you're snacking at your desk or on a road trip or just need a quick protein boost. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios is a snack that works as hard as you do. Get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Game 5 of the Stanley Cup playoffs between the Kings and Oilers coming up on Tuesday night in LA. The home team has won every game so far in the series. Of course, home ice has been great for the Kings all season long. It needs to be again in a big Game 5. Hopefully the harmonica power can help as well. As for changes for the Kings in Game 5, as for the lineup, I'm curious to see if Jordan Spence maybe draws back into the lineup. Jacob Moverard played only 2 minutes and 26 seconds, so maybe it doesn't matter either way if Hiller continues to basically play just 5 defensemen. Hopefully home ice will mean more productive power play and a better penalty kill. The Kings were lights out in both areas at home, but have slipped a bit on the road. No power play goals in game number 4 and allowing 2 power play goals. So the Oilers have flipped the script so far as their power play at home as opposed to what it was on the road. But most importantly, I'll say it again, 3 solid periods of hockey playing the same style that has been so effective for the Kings, no matter what the score is, right? Make the Oilers worry about the Kings. It is now a best of 3. Win your home games and you win the series. And I have no doubt Crypto.com Arena will be rocking again on Tuesday. Hope to see you guys out there for that one. I did want to mention that the Kings AHL affiliate, the Ontario Reign, had a very disappointing end of the season. The Reign lost both of their playoff games at Crypto.com Arena and were eliminated in the first round of the AHL playoffs by the San Jose Barracuda. They lost the deciding game 2-1 on Saturday. Martin Chromiak scored the lone goal for the Reign, while Phoenix Copley allowed 2 goals on 25 shots. As far as kind of looking back at the season for Ontario this year, pretty successful regular season. They finished in the top 3 in the Pacific Division, had a shot at winning the division until late in the year. Veteran Charles Hudon led the Reign in scoring with 64 points. Samuel Fagemo, in what is almost certainly his last season with the Reign, led the team with 29 goals. He is now a free agent, and he is going to look to try and get a chance to play in the NHL somewhere else, almost certainly. Next season, we will get a shot at looking at some of the younger prospects, some of the guys that joined the team late, like Otto Selin, Jared Wright, and Cohen Ziemer, and some of the rookies that played off and on for the team this year, like Angus Booth, Atu Yemsen, and Jakub Dvorak. Really curious to get an update on the health of goalie Eric Portillo and figure out what his status is for next season with a possible injury. I don't know what the injury is. They've been very, very secretive about it. Is it something that could require off-season surgery? I don't know. I've got Portillo penciled in as the Kings' backup goalie next season, but obviously that would be contingent on him being healthy to start next season. If he isn't, then maybe David Riddick is brought back, or maybe the Kings look to get another veteran backup goalie elsewhere. But good regular season for the Ontario Reign, but a very disappointing end to the postseason, a very brief postseason. It's just best of 3 in the first round of the AHL playoffs, and the Reign went 0-2. All right, but obviously our focus is on game number 5, Kings Oilers, Tuesday in LA. I will admit I am still grumpy recording this show hours later after the game 5 final, but like the players, we too as fans got to turn the page, get ready to cheer on the Kings in game 5. Like I said, it's a best of 3. It's 2-2, even though they lost the first 2 games. We obviously saw the Oilers come back with 2 big wins. The Kings need to do so, and certainly are capable of doing so in game number 5. But again, play the right way for all 3 periods and reclaim the series lead and move to 3-0 on home ice. That's what we're looking for in a big game 5 coming up on Tuesday. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on our next show, Jesse Cohen, the host of Kings Talk and the All the Kings Men podcast, is scheduled to join us. We'll talk about what we've seen so far in the Kings-Oilers series and what we hope to see in game number 5. Hope you'll join us for our next show. If you want to send an email for the show for any reason, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com. You're always welcome to post your thoughts if you watch this show on YouTube in the comment section. And we would love you to stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We will talk to you on our next show. And as always, go Kings go.